Welcome back to Turf Talk Champions Racing Edition. Vance, some pretty big names in action, some against each other in the Pacific Classic, and one many expect will be all alone at the wire in the Alabama. We'll start with her 3-year-old filly. Leader of the division, Catherine Sophia, maybe still in the wings, catch a glimpse, but to me, winning the Alabama would really put the division out of reach without something exceptional happening, and she'll be 1-10 to get the job done.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't, just on the cursory look at the field for Saturday, it doesn't look like she's going to have too much of an issue getting the 1.25 miles against that group. I think the only way others can get back into the divisional races if, say, she goes to the Cotillion at Parks Racing next month. That's for sure where Catherine Sophia is going to be pointed to in the long term. And, you know, if Catherine Sophia happens to upset her on her home track, then the race is wide open again. But taking the long-term view of things, I don't think Songbird's going to be caught in this race.
No, and, to me, looking at the 3-year-old filly division, there are seemingly a lot of grade ones, both before and after the Oaks. But to me, the Oaks and the Alabama are the two big ones, and you could make an argument maybe what would make up a third classic if that division had it. But like you said, Catherine Sophia did win the Kentucky Oaks. Granted, Songbird wasn't there, but part of building a resume is being able to make the races. So it would sort of be 1-1 against the prestigious fillies, and if Catherine Sophia somehow were to win head-to-head, she would certainly be right there for championship considerations, and then it might come down to the Breeders' Cup. But, I mean, what Songbird has done to date and the Alabama, to me, it'd be hard to overcome, and it would take beating her on the square.
Yeah, and looking at Catherine Sophia's record a little more closely, I mean, she did lose the Acorn to Karina Mia.
Right.
And you would think Karina Mia is also going to be cotillion bound with a $1 million purse. So, it's going to be a great race no matter who's running in it. And, taking the long-term view of things, the Breeders' Cup Distaff probably isn't going to have a whole lot of effect on this division if Songbird performs the way we think she will. But if she doesn't, if she stumbles at some point, Songbird's just going to be that much tougher against, say, a Catherine Sophia going 1 1/8 miles and 1 1/16 miles. So really, it's Songbird's eclipse race to lose.
Yeah, sure. You did mention the Acorn with Karina Mia, and Catherine Sophia actually lost another grade 1. She finished ahead of Karina Mia that day, but did lose to Weep No More and Rachel's Valentina, which, unless there's some head-to-head victory and Catherine Sophia beats Elders, that's going to stick out too. And Songbird, of course, still undefeated. But always fun to watch, and, it is racing in Saratoga and 1.25 miles. So until she actually does it, I'll be holding my breath, but certainly cheering for her. Not betting at that price, but I do like what she's capable of. It is interesting, though, if she were to win there, they could almost pretty much punt out on the championship if they went to the Zenyatta against older females and then really dreaming, but went to the Classic. It wouldn't matter what anyone else did. She'd win the division without having to really face anyone else, and rightfully so. So we'll see.
Yeah, and for me personally, I don't know how much a cotillion victory would add to her legacy whatsoever. I would much rather have her come back to Keeneland running the Spinster. They'll probably want to avoid a possible rematch with or a match with Beholder and or Stellar Wind in the Zenyatta Stakes before the Breeders' Cup. I think maybe the Spinster would be a pretty good option for Songbird.
Yeah, other than Dorf, who has shipped to Delaware and Parks before with some of his absolute best horses, I don't really understand why the cotillion, other than money, and Rick Porter's from that area, but you've already won at Saratoga. Like, there's no parade for you in Philadelphia unless you're Smarty Jones. So to me, that would be sort of, and with Catherine Sophia there, I mean, it'd be one thing to pick off $1 million, but it is the Oaks winner. So to me, why not? I'm with you. I mean, maybe not the Spinster, but that would be interesting. But we'll one step at a time, I guess, and we'll see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, the cotillion's appeal I think is just all about the money. It's $1 million, and it's horsemen these days just are very averse to running against older horses before the Breeders' Cup, before they have to, so to speak. So it's one of the detriments to our game these days, but it's something we have to accept, and we move on.
Well, Keeneland does have the Spinster back on dirt, 1 1/8. It would be interesting to see them maybe make a play for Songbird, because they had the Breeders' Cup, so some huge names there. But week in and week out, meet in and meet out. It's been a while since they've had a dirt superstar. We've been treated to Wise Dan and Tepin on the turf recently, but on the dirt it would be kind of cool to see them go after a name that big. I mean, there have been champions there, Run Happy and others, but Songbird would be as big a name as I can remember outside the Breeders' Cup on the dirt in a while.
Yeah, and I would think that there's a lot of great older fillies and mares around the country to make it an actual challenge for Songbird too. The
Right.
older filly and mare division is particularly deep, and we'll have the Zenyatta Stakes, we'll have the Beldame in New York, and the Spinster, and I think the older female set will be spread around pretty evenly among those three races, and Songbird could get an adequate and a good challenge ahead of the Breeders' Cup there. And the Spinster, since it's gone back to dirt, Close Hatches came in a couple of years ago on a real hot streak, and then she really folded like a deck of cards, unfortunately. And so far in the 2 years it's been back on dirt, she's been the premier horse to run there.
Yeah.
But Songbird will definitely add to the legacy of that race if she shows up there.
All right, well, we're in her corner for sure. Testament to Songbird's celebrity is that we did spend so much time on her being 1 to 10 in her next race, when across the country there is a big showdown, which lost maybe a little shine when Beholder lost, but the number came back pretty big. So I really have no reason to think she's not on her game, especially if Mandela has persevered to the Pacific Classic. But of course, Horse of the Year, California Chrome is in the race. Dortmund stretches out to a mile and a quarter, second off the layoff. Firing Line is back. Hard Aces is a Grade 1 winner. As good a Pacific Classic as we've seen in a while.
Yeah, and this is going to have a lot of championship implications. If California Chrome wins, he retains his spot at the top of the division. If he loses, it's wide open.
Yeah.
Same with Beholder. If Beholder loses, she doesn't lose much of anything, but it does mean, in my eyes, that, maybe she's lost a step at age 6, especially if the margin of defeat happens to be a little wider than you would have expected.
Right.
So it's going to be a great race, a mile and a quarter. It's really become the top race in California now, over the Santa Anita Handicap and some other races, the great races of the past. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, and we'll talk more with James on Point later this week. I know he's keen to play against favored California Chrome, given he drew the rail. To me, you mentioned the wide open nature of the older males. I'm sure many in the East Coast would feel differently and feel like Frosted has it over a barrel. And he does have the 2 Grade 1 wins. So does Melatonin, though. And to me, he would be the leader in the division without question. But I would be more on your side to look, if a horse comes back and wins another Grade 1 and the Breeders' Cup, they're going to be champion older male. And for that reason, it's anyone's division. California Chrome wins, though, he's clearly the leader, because it's, another mile and a quarter dirt race. He beat Frosted head-to-head in Dubai, which some people say Dubai, but to me, Frosted was favored. It was sort of a home race for him, given his owners. California Chrome won on the square, so it goes through him with the win. Otherwise, we'll be debating it probably next week. Do you give Dortmund much of a shot?
Just on the head-to-head, he ran a great race off the layoff in the San Diego. He was coming off a longer layoff than California Chrome was. I think both horses are going to be better for it. Therefore, I give the edge to California Chrome, especially going a mile and a quarter. Yeah. Dortmund hasn't quite shown his capability at that distance against top company just yet. So I'm going to stick with the champ.
I think if you want to gamble, I think Dortmund's really your only option. If, California Chrome's odds on, that's too low for me. Beholder's too much of a question mark is the second choice. So at 4 or 5 to 1, maybe an action bet just to, he is a multiple Grade 1 winner. He ran well in the Derby behind American Pharoah. He'd be a lean from that regard, but I absolutely think California Chrome's the most likely winner, and we'll pick him on top. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the race.
Yeah, I agree. Dortmund's going to be the value of the race among the top 3 participants. And, could with California Chrome drawn on the rail, it could turn into kind of a rider's race.
Yeah, without question.
And I think Bejarano's picked up the mount on Dortmund. And,
right.
He's very crafty, and anything can happen when the gates open.
And Baffert has a horse to Chrome's outside that's not Dortmund. I forget who it is. Oh, Opportunity. And, shades to me of the Awesome Again with Shared Belief. And Baffert had a couple different looks and allegations that he had shared belief, race ridden basically. Wouldn't shock me to see the same with California Chrome.
Yeah, I don't know Baffert's intentions entering opportunity in this race. I know he maybe wanted to have a look at it. I know the Woodward at Saratoga has been mentioned as his next start as well. I think that's on Labor Day weekend. So
Right.
I'll see what happens if opportunity stays in the field. If
Right.
not, well, I'll expect him to see it at Saratoga in a couple weeks.
All right, well, lots to look forward to, especially this weekend, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about it next week, so hope you'll join us then on Turf Talk.